Hello, everyone. It is me. It is me, and after a very long time. That was a very exciting intro. I'm clearly out of practice on this whole YouTube thing. I'm sorry. I just finished talking to Gene over at Ladder Daily Digest. I'm going to put his link in the description of this video. But I found myself, so we did a quick interview on his channel. I found myself with a little extra time to do something on my channel. And I have a couple of ideas that have been popping around in my head, but my life is a little crazy. I've been updating some of you. And basically, it's been a little over a month since my wife gave birth to our second child. And so if any of you out there have kids, you know what my life is like right now. It's a lot of not sleeping. It's a lot of, who knows? So finding the time to make a video, script a video in the way that I script them. It's not fully scripting, to be 100% honest with you. But going through that whole rigmarole is not really a possibility right now, but there are still things that I feel an urgency to say, to talk about, conversations that I'm having out in the real world with, Mormons in the wild. Like Pokemon in the wild. It's like one pops up and they're like, their conversation about faith is not very effective. Yeah, I'm the Pokemon mad over here, but I found some apologetics that made me laugh. They've been making me laugh all day, just with how silly and shallow they are, and I wanted to share it with you lovely people. So I know that there won't be a lot of people watching right now, and that's totally fine. I haven't been on the YouTubes in a long time, and so I'm just kind of expecting that this is going to be something that people see later, whatever. If you are here right now and you want to hop on and chat I will be on for the next 30 minutes, which Utah Mountain Standard Time puts us at about 10:50. I'll be signing off. So if you open this and it's not 10:50 quite yet, and you want to chat, say something in the chat, and I'll get you a link, and you can come on and we can talk about whatever you want to talk about. If there are multiple people who want to get on, which I don't see that as a thing, then I'll try and limit it to maybe we'll talk about one thing for 3 minutes and then switch to the next person. But again, I haven't been on YouTube for a long time, and so I'm expecting that it's basically just me talking to myself here, which is fine. I do see that I have one person watching. Who knows who that could be? Hello, person. That's sad. That's sad. I shouldn't have said anything because nobody would know, but now everybody knows that at this point in the video, there was one person watching. We're off to a great start. And yeah, so the clip that we're going to be listening to, because this is so spur of the moment, I have it on my phone, and we're going to put the phone up to the microphone, and that's how we're going to listen to it. Okay? This is high tech, everybody. I could probably figure out how to quickly send it over to my computer, but it's fine. I don't care. So, without further ado, we're going to listen to this, and it's going to be hilarious. So a little bit about whoever this podcast is. It's called the Church History Podcast, or the Church History Matters Podcast, and it is by Scripture Central, which the two guys who do the podcast are BYU professors, and they do make a big deal in this episode about how smart they are and how they're using such big words, and that's hilarious to me. I do not yet have a degree that would allow me to teach at a university, but I already knew all of the words that they thought were hard. So who's smart now, bitches? But I want to get the names of these guys because, not that they're going to want to talk to me after this, but I would be willing to talk to them. And so I want to pull up their names. So church history, I'm literally Googling this as we go. Scott Woodward, Mormon Church Matters podcast. So one of them is Scott Woodward, and the other guy is his name is Casey, but I can't find the rest of it. This is a magnificent radio. I'm killing it right now. So actually, I just found a way that I'm going to be able to just play it from the computer, so we'll have better sound. That's probably better. That is probably better. Load more. I guess I'll share this screen over here so people know what the hell is going on. Why do I do this? Why do I come up with weird last minute ideas and then execute them poorly? Why do I do this? Okay. So I am looking for what do you know and how? That is what it's called. What do you know and how? Okay. And we are 22 minutes in.
Is to be in. And then
Here,
that we're
Okay.
right.
basis.
That's true.
Events or anything like that.
Wise man.
But it's basically what is real.
Yeah.
We're going to respond to this. Sick music. I am complimenting the music.
So epistemology, ontology. Hopefully you're still with us. Let's
Such hard
go
words.
to the next word, which isn't super big, facts.
Yeah. And
Hard
what if
word.
we do the next three together? Because I think they play off of each other.
Okay, do them. Yeah, go ahead.
So facts, inferences, and assumptions. These are words we're going to use a lot throughout.
So these are hard words, guys. These are the words that these super smart college professors, because we're smart, we're BYU professors, we're smart. So these are the words that we have to explain. But the way that he uses them in an example is wild. So here we go.
This series. So facts are things that are true and verifiable no matter your perspective, right? Like I'm wearing glasses right now. Like that's true. It's verifiable. Doesn't matter your perspective, your worldview. Like I'm wearing glasses,
Yeah.
That's a fact. And then there's inferences. Inferences are kind of these snap conclusions or meaning that we give the facts based upon our underlying assumptions.
Mhm.
Someone's coming at you with a knife. You're going to make a snap conclusion. I'm in danger. This person intends to harm me or something like that. And that's based on assumptions. And assumptions are these like beliefs that we suppose to be true, usually based on previous learning that we don't really question. These assumptions form our belief system and help us interpret the world.
And of course, something has happened to my internet. I love this so much. Present, share screen, share, go back. I'm sorry, everyone. I only have these problems when I need to not have these problems. I'm going to go back just a little bit, but he still hasn't gotten to the crux of what I want to talk about, so it should be fine.
Series, hermeneutic, which is basically a fancy word for the lens by which we see the world. And so, or another way we could say is our hermeneutic is our cluster of assumptions that then form the lens by which we look out into the world and interpret what's going on out there. And that's true of looking at the present, also looking at the past, and also contemplating the future. And so facts, inferences, and assumptions are huge to be able to slow down and think about especially when it comes to analyzing history.
Mm-hmm.
Let me give an example. Here's a fact. In 1839, Joseph Smith testified that in 1820, he saw 2 divine beings who answered his prayer. That's a fact.
Fact. Yeah. Nobody's disputing that. Yeah. It just happened.
We got the manuscripts in 1839. Like we
Okay, so pay close attention that the fact is that I want to say he said 1839, Joseph Smith wrote down that he had the first vision. Okay, that's the fact. And that is a fact.
like we know that's true. That's what he testified, and that's when he testified. Now, someone might make an inference that Joseph must not have actually seen a vision in 1820, or else he would have written about it when it happened, not 19 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be based on an assumption that people basically always write down major life experiences shortly after they happen. And since Joseph didn't do that, my inference is he must not be telling the truth. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's coming from what we called a hermeneutic of suspicion back in our first vision episode. Here's another one.
All right. So that's fun. Let's go over this again, even though we're all smart people and we can hear what he just said. So the fact is that in 1839, Joseph Smith wrote down that he had the first vision. Now, now this guy is saying, wait, but it was 19 years after. So what are we supposed to make of that? So are we supposed to then, would somebody then infer that because it happened 19 years later that he was just making it up on the spot and it didn't really happen? Well, that's all based on an assumption that usually when people see visions, they immediately write them down. And that's a false assumption, clearly, that we need to correct. Because obviously the rule is that when you see God and Jesus, you are supposed to wait for 19 years. Obviously, the 19-year rule, you haven't heard of the 19-year rule? No, what I love about this is he brings up a valid critique and then gives it the wrong assumption and doesn't give it enough context. And it's just hilarious. So here's the reason, in my opinion, that the 19 years are a little weird. First of all, the church did not portray Joseph Smith's upbringing this way, right? If you go watch the Restoration movie, workers are making fun of him in the town square. They're making fun of his brothers in the town square. They're saying, Joseph, seen any visions lately? That guy's Scottish for some reason, or Irish in the movie. And then everybody like throws their head back and laughs, right? And so first of all, if the church knew that it was 19 years later, then why? Why did they portray it that way in the movie, right? Is it because it's a little suspicious that 19 years went by? Here's another reason why it's a little suspicious to me. It seems like maybe it didn't happen. And then when he decided that he wanted to try and sell the Book of Mormon and make money on it, but because the whole reason that he wrote the Book of Mormon was because he was just trying to get it copywritten in Canada and then sell it. And when that didn't work, he did an even more lucrative thing, which was start a whole religion and take 10% of everyone's money for, perpetuity. But it makes sense to me that he didn't need an account of the backstory of why he wrote the book until he had already written the book. And then he could just say, oh yeah, by the way, back in 1820, I totally saw this thing. But here's the main reason why. My assumption is that my base assumption behind this whole thing is that people don't actually see God and people don't actually see Jesus. And the reason that I think that, and probably the reason that I actually think that, I've already forgotten their names, but I actually think that Stephen, if that's their name, and Casey, I'm sorry if I am wrong about that, but I actually think that these two gentlemen would agree with me, is Muhammad claimed to speak to God, and I don't think that they believe him. Matthew Gill, who we've talked about on this show quite a lot, actually. Matthew Gill. The testimony of Matthew Gill. Yes. This man right here claimed to see Moroni. Pretty hilarious. He claims that Moroni gave him a book to translate, which was a testament of the ancient peoples of Great Britain. Now, Matthew Gill is from England, so that makes perfect sense. Matthew Gill was raised Mormon, so that culture that he was steeped in perfectly accepts, but it makes space for individuals who claim to see God. And in fact, when he told his dad that he had seen God and that God had given him a work to do, his dad kind of really didn't have an argument against that, because his whole worldview is, 14-year-olds see God all the time. But I would bet money, I would bet all of my monies and pennies that these two gentlemen who are doing this podcast don't think that Matthew Gill actually saw Moroni. I would also be willing to bet that these two gentlemen do not think that Warren Jeffs sees God or Jesus, right? And so if I were to reframe what these guys are saying, I would say, let's redo all of this. I want to listen to his fact, the whole walkthrough.
Your perspective, your worldview, like I'm wearing these assumptions form our belief system and by which we look out into the world. And we got the manuscripts in 1839, like we still have, like we know that's true. That's what he testified, and that's when he testified.
So
now someone might make an inference that Joseph must not have actually seen a vision in 1820, or else he would have written about it when it happened.
Now, I am going to make an inference that Joseph Smith did not see God in 1820, because I don't think anyone has ever seen God ever. Because I think Muhammad probably didn't see God. I think that Warren Jeffs probably hasn't seen God. I'm willing to bet that David Koresh never saw God. I'm willing to bet that Matthew Gill has never seen God. I'm willing to bet that 99.5% of the people who claimed in history to have seen God haven't, And so I guess that's the main issue that most of us have with the Joseph Smith story. The 19 years later thing is actually just adding insult to injury. And then when you conveniently look at the fact that he was trying to get the book copywritten and he was trying to sell it, and that just so happens to be when he decides that he needs to release the backstory of how he became a prophet. That's when it all just gets a little too convenient for me. So let's keep listening to what these silly boys say. And to the two people who are watching, hello. I hope that you are doing great. And thank you for watching. Seriously, I've missed doing this. This is probably a more rusty version of what I would like to be doing, but you got to get back on the horse somehow, And I'm low on sleep. I'm low on brain functioning. I'm low on pretty much everything right now. And I've been listening to Apologetics just to kind of like stay fresh and give me some content ideas while I'm working or doing things around the house. And they're turning my brain into mush. So I'm literally becoming dumber by the day. So that's fun. All right, let's go on to, he's going to do a couple of these examples. So let's listen to more of them.
19 years later, at a women's conference called Seekers Wanted, he gave a variation of what I'm going through right now. So props to Steve for helping me think slowly about these things too. Here's another one. Joseph Smith said that he was employed to search for buried treasure and that he used a seer stone to do so. That's a fact. Inference. God would not call a young man who searched for buried treasure by looking in a stone to be a prophet. Assumption. Looking for buried treasure through stones is weird and fringe and cultish. It's like, why would God call someone that was engaged in weird stuff to be like a dignified prophet? That can't be right. Or
actually think that it's probably very normal for God to call people who are into, quote, weird stuff, right? Like most religious people will actually typically pride themselves on being a little weird. It's like, yeah, we're a little wacky, but that's because, we're just following the Lord, like I'm okay with weird. What I'm not okay with is telling lies, taking people's money, and just basically participating in fraudulent behavior. I think that's the problem. And they're kind of doing this thing where if you just kind of like, oh, whoa, isn't this so weird? Then it makes it sound like it's normal, but it's not normal. It was weird stuff. And it just makes me laugh a little bit that they're going to kind of prime us into thinking like, oh, this is actually totally normal. Like, listen to the tone here. This is just
at a women's conference called Seekers Wanted. He gave a variation of what I'm going through right now. So props to Steve for helping me think slowly about these things too. Here's another one. Joseph Smith.
I have some homework for you, college professor. Think slower about these things.
Said that he was employed to search for buried treasure and that he used a seer stone to do so. That's a fact. Inference. God would not call a young man who searched for buried treasure by looking in a stone to be a prophet.
Here's another inference. Maybe God doesn't call people to be prophets. That could be an inference. Definitely not young men who defraud people, because that's, again, speaking to their character, and I think that God would be a better judge of character, but I don't know.
Assumption. Looking for buried treasure through stones is weird.
It is weird. Don't say it like that. It is weird.
And fringe and cultish.
Also fringe and cultish. Also fringe and cultish. You're saying it like it's a joke so that we don't think that it's a joke, but actually it is true.
Yeah. It's like, why would God call someone that was engaged in weird stuff to be like
fraudulent behavior, not weird stuff?
Like a dignified prophet. That can't be right. Or here's another one from our polygamy series. Joseph Smith was sealed to many women. Fact.
Yep.
Verifiable. But some people infer from that kind of snap conclusion. Joseph Smith must have exercised unrighteous dominion over women.
That's an inference. He must have. Look, he was a great guy. This goes back to the thing that we were saying about people don't see God, right? Can these two gentlemen name a single other example of men who just so happen to be married to a whole bunch of women who aren't engaging in unrighteous dominion? David Koresh? Yo, Sparker, what's up? Thank you for catching up. David Koresh, was he engaging in unrighteous dominion? I bet these guys would say yes. What about Warren Jeffs? Is he engaging in unrighteous dominion? What about the Prophet Muhammad? Did you know that in the Islamic world, the average man is allowed to be married to 4 women, but Muhammad was allowed to be married to as many women as he wanted? Do these two gentlemen think that those guys are engaging in unrighteous dominion? And if they think that they are, what makes Joseph Smith so special other than they already think he's a prophet? Because they're talking about epistemology, right? This whole episode is how do you know what you know? And all they're doing is saying, well, let's rewind something here. And let's see if their reasoning still stands while talking about David Koresh. Or if they're... Oh, it's so frustrating. Sparker, if you... first of all, hello. Thank you for catching up. If you want to hop in here, I'll send a link. I'll put it in the chat. We got like another 10 minutes of this. So let's see if David Koresh stands the test of time here. But first, let's finish what they were saying.
But it's based on what? Assumption. Men in positions of power often take advantage of women. Therefore, Joseph Smith must have taken advantage, right? Hermeneutic.
Now, those reasons actually all sound really, really good to me. Let's listen to this again and think about Warren Jeffs or David Koresh.
You know, it's like, why would God call someone that was engaged in weird stuff to be like a dignified prophet? That can't be right. Or here's another one from our polygamy series. Joseph Smith was sealed to many women. Fact.
Yep.
Verifiable. Right?
Okay, David Koresh was banging lots of guys' wives, and also Warren Jeffs is sealed to many women. Some of them are underage.
But some people infer from that kind of a snap conclusion, Joseph Smith must have exercised unrighteous dominion over women.
And you know what I don't like about what these people say about Warren Jeffs is they think that just because he's sealed to all these women, some of whom are underage, that he's exercising unrighteous dominion over them. Like, that's just an unfair thing to think. And you know what? It's based on a false assumption. And do you want to know what that is?
Inference, but it's based on what? Assumption. Men in positions of power often take advantage of women.
Yeah. And he's not. And Warren Jeffs is not. That's a false assumption. I don't know. Let's continue. I think there's one more.
Therefore, Joseph Smith must have taken advantage, right? A hermeneutic of suspicion. What we'd like to do in the series is to show that that's not the only way to think about these things, right? There are important skills of thinking slowly.
Yeah. Think slower, guys.
Examining our own assumptions and being willing to change those assumptions in light of new information. And when you change your assumptions, that's going to change the inferences or the snap conclusions and the meaning we give to the facts and help us to kind of reorient and see the history with some more clarity. And that's in light of new information, not closing our eyes to information, right? And that's, you mentioned earlier, content.
All right. That actually might be it. All right. Again, terribly sorry. Let's see. Sparker says the conversation is a perfect example of how I don't need anti-Mormon lies to find problems with the church. There's plenty of of issues with everything they admit to. Exactly. This is why, like, as soon as I looked into issues with the church, and I stayed on BYU sources. Now, we're going to have to like hop in the time machine a little bit, because when I was studying all of this stuff, it was like 2020. That's when I was looking at all of it. I realized, I guess I'll tell a quick story. I have a friend, one of the friends who I studied a lot of this stuff with, who served his mission in like the Washington, Oregon area. And there were these people from a religion that I don't remember exactly, but they would follow him and his companion around and just pass out like Joseph Smith was mentally handicapped flyers. And that's the type of anti-Mormon literature that's obviously fake. And the thing that's so ironic about that is that if we just looked at the actual, like, for lack of a better term, peer-reviewed, like church-approved sources, there's so much in there that's wrong, to Sparker's point here, that we don't need to introduce all these crazy falsehoods. They've gone over the 19-year gap between when Joseph Smith claims to have seen God the Father and Jesus Christ, and the publishing of the 4 different and contradictory statements about the first vision, right? They've mentioned that, and how that's weird. That's not weird, because people always wait 19 years to tell everyone that they've seen God, guys. Come on. They've brought up the treasure digging, and how, yeah, that's just based on a false assumption that God doesn't call guys who defraud people. And then we've talked about how, of all the men in the history of the world who have taken advantage of women, Joseph Smith was the perfect guy. Like, I think that they are actually operating from the false assumption that Joseph Smith, I think they're starting with the end in mind and saying, look, I know this looks bad, but since I already have decided that Joseph Smith was a good guy, none of this is an issue. And so that's not epistemology. That's just choosing what the goalposts were going to be from the beginning, and then just confirmation bias until you get there. So with that being said, I think this is a great example of how inept I am at doing anything on YouTube. Thank you to everybody who's stuck around and watching and commenting. I appreciate you. I have missed doing this. I said it at the beginning, but life is a little weird right now. I have too many kids to get anything done, and I love them very much, and I would not change that for the world. But it does mean that I do this a little less right now. So thank you, everyone, for bearing with me. I want to show you guys something cool. Just showing. This is not something that can be purchased yet. This is in the works, but I'm working on some sick stuff. You can't tell, but there are some signs missing from here that if you've been through the temple might look familiar to you. So it's a nice little cheeky thing that you can wear about your active family members, and they won't know what is going on. Obviously my channel is based on the Übermensch. Nietzsche talked about a species that would be evolved past humans and would be better than humans and would be beyond humans, right? And this channel is about being beyond Mormons. This is about absorbing what they teach, absorbing what there is to learn, because there is some stuff that's helpful and there is some stuff that's good, but what we've gone over today isn't one of those things. And so we're going to absorb all the good that we can. We're going to take it with us, and then we're going to move beyond it, and we're going to be better humans because of it. And so I have this thing where I am incapable of doing anything that's like not layered and overly complicated, and sometimes it makes it so that I have paralysis and I can't start anything because I want it to be too good from the beginning. And so, trying to cut that out of my life. And maybe that means that every once in a while I have to do shitty lives like this. I appreciate the few of you who are here right now. And I also appreciate the few of you who are going to watch this over the course of the next few days. Please share it with your friends. Thank you to everybody for being here. And we're going to end the stream right here. Bye.